Good morning, I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines.
Former Senator Antonio Trillanes IV accused Senator Bongo and his family of profiting from multi-billion peso government contracts under the Duterte administration.
Senate President Tito Sotto says Senator Ping Lacson will be back as head of the powerful Blue Ribbon Panel.
Out of the 1,700 classrooms targeted to be built this year, only 22 classrooms have been finished so far by the DPWH.
The Philippine Coast Guard has recovered 887 human bone fragments from Taal Lake so far in the search for missing Sabongeros.
Senate President Pro Tempore Ping Lacson is expected to make a comeback as chairman of the Blue Ribbon Committee. Here's the report.
100%. That's how certain Senate President Tito Sotto is that Senate President Pro Tempore Ping Lacson will return as chairman of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee. According to Sotto, Lacson was informed that several senators and even the public want him back at the helm of the committee. He believes Lacson still has unfinished business in the Blue Ribbon Committee.
Marami pang hindi nauungkat. At kung ito'y makakatulong, ang tingin niya siguro, mas makakatulong ito sa ICI at doon sa Ombudsman and the Department of Justice. Ako, tingin ko si Senator Lacson, 100% na babalik bilang Blue Ribbon Committee Chair.
Lacson earlier said that both he and Sotto should be ready for the consequences should he return to the post, including the possible withdrawal of support from some senators and even the risk of Sotto losing the Senate presidency.
Tingin ko kasi nakabackup dito yung karamihan ng mga kasama namin sa Senado at nakabackup din sa amin ng publiko eh. Basta ako, kahit anong pwesto ibigay sa akin sa Senado, magtatrabaho ko.
For his part, Senator J.V. Ejercito, a member of the majority, said he sees no problem with Lacson returning to the Blue Ribbon chairmanship.
Kasi walang takers din eh, no? And at the same time, I have to parang ako pinapagbinta na sinasabing ako naging factor, wala, no? Actually kami sa Lacson, nag-uusap kami naman yan. Parang na-clarify naman ni SP Sotto yun, no? Nung nagkaroon kami ng caucus. Nagkaroon lang kasi nagkagulatan na siguro na hindi nagkaintindihan, pero it was clarified.
Lacson, however, raised concerns, asking what value the chairmanship would hold if the majority bloc loses control to the minority led by Senator Alan Peter Cayetano. Cayetano responded that there's no need to involve the minority in what he described as a family matter within the Senate majority. He emphasized that Lacson's resignation stemmed from dissatisfaction among members of the majority, not from any action by the minority bloc. For News 5, Mon Gualvez, we are One News.
Former Senator Antonio Trillanes IV claims that Senator Bongo and his family profited from multi-billion peso government contracts under the Duterte administration. Go, however, dismissed the allegations as a mere distraction. Here is a report.
Former Senator Antonio Trillanes IV alleged that Senator Bongo sent several emissaries to persuade him to withdraw the plunder case he filed before the Office of the Ombudsman.
Problema kasi ni Bongo, alam nyo, ilang conduit yung pinadala niya sa akin para aregluhin, para hindi siya isama. Pero hindi niya ako mabili ng pera niya eh. Di ba? Tapos yung mga sinasabi niya may mga ginawa akong mali. Alam mo, 6 years sila naghalokay sa akin. 30 cases yung final nila sa akin, mga libel cases, mga harassment cases lang. Ni isang corruption case wala sila nakita sa akin. Di ba?
Trillanes challenged Go to respond to the allegations, saying he no longer enjoys the protection he once had.
A total of 200 contracts ang naibigay niya sa tatay at kapatid niya. Yan po ang facts. Ito, hindi niya mapagkakaila na hindi pwedeng nakakuha itong mga ito nang wala siyang impluwensya. At kahit nasabihin niyang wala siya impluwensya, the law defined it na pagka nasa posisyon ka ng gobyerno na maaring ma-impluwensya doon sa mga kontrata na yan.
The former senator said Go's family business grew during the Duterte administration allegedly bagging 7 billion pesos worth of public works contract. Trillanes also named former President Rodrigo Duterte as co-principal in the alleged plunder scheme.
Kailangan po kasing isama siya kasi integral siya doon sa commission of the crime. So, part siya doon as a co-principal ni Bongo kasi hindi mangyari yung krimen kung hindi sa participation niya. So, ano yan? Principal by direct participation.
Trillanes further tagged Go as the mastermind behind the flood control anomaly, citing contractors and officials who allegedly benefited from government projects. But for Go, Trillanes is only diverting public attention away from the real flood control issue.
Tumbukin po yung dapat tumbukin. Nasa na yung mga dapat kasuhan sa issue ng flood control? Nasa na? Bakit walang mga pinangalanan na malalaking tao? Yung mga buhaya. Ba't pilit yung pinagtatakpan?
Go insisted he never used his position to favor his family's businesses.
You are barking at the wrong tree. Pilit binubuhay para lang mapinturahan po ako ng maitim para siya po ang magmukhang maputi. My conscience is clear. Unlike him, panlabas o panloob, pati konsensya niya madumi.
Go said he will cooperate with the Ombudsman's investigation in hopes for a fair process. Ombudsman Justice Crispin Remulla confirmed that the complaint filed by Trillanes will undergo standard evaluation procedures.
The Public Works Department has built only 22 classrooms so far this year, out of a target of 1,700. DPWH Secretary Emila Sadain Dizon, who took over in September, called the figure deplorable. Senator Bam Aquino warned that if the pace continues, the country's classroom backlog could reach 200,000 by 2028. Aquino also questioned the agency's 3 million classroom cost, noting experts estimate the actual cost should be around 2 million. Dizon said the DPWH will work with the Education Department and explore public-private partnerships to speed up construction.
Now let's discuss this matter with Philippine Business for Education Executive Director Hannibal Kamwa. Good morning and thanks for joining us again.
Good morning, Mama Angela and Sir Angelo. Thank you for having me.
All right, so for this year, 22 classroom pa lang daw yung nagagawa, no? I think that's way below the goal, no, of the Department of DPWH. So what is your reaction to this?
Well, I was nakaantabay tayo doon, ma'am, doon sa budget hearing nung DPWH at doon nga po na sabi na 22 classrooms na po yung natapos. Nakakagalit yun. Particularly because for the longest time we've been dealing with backlogs in classrooms. I remember specifically in one of my interviews here in your program, dive on the issue on the classroom backlogs, and it currently stands at more than 165,000 backlogs in classrooms, and out of that 165, if only 22 yung napupunan or natatapos ng DPWH sa isang taon, ay aabutin po tayo ng mas marami pang dekada para maayos po yung problema na yan sa mga classrooms po.
Actually, Hannibal, looking at the numbers, 22 out of the target, it looks like na if this is the pace we're going at, we are never going to hit yung required number of classrooms at any given time. The question here is, they are taking a look at the corruption. Do you think that there's something happening na hindi natin gusto, and one of these days, magugulat na lang tayo, kung hindi substandard, ang dami na palang ghost classrooms?
Now, again, Sir Angelo, we are talking here of an agency that has been in the center of all these controversies.
Yes.
No? And I believe, and this is my personal take, the flood control controversy is just the tip of the iceberg. And basically, if that happens in flood control projects, hindi malayo po na mangyayari yan sa other infrastructure project na hawak ng DPWH, no? So maliban sa flood control, may roads pa po yan, and may classrooms. And for me, my interest is really on the classrooms. If we are, again, this is just for this year. 22 lang yung natapos nila. In a previous report, this was actually made in a statement by Secretary Angara. Out of the classrooms that they have inspected, parang 1,000 po are actually hindi magamit-gamit. No?
Yes.
Yung mga na-produce or na kinonstruct ng DPWH, parang almost 1,000 hindi magamit ng DepEd because it's substandards or substandard siya or may mga issue siya. So if I believe that if there would be going to be a deep dive and an investigation on the classrooms as well, hindi malayo po na magkakaroon po ng pag-ungkat on this controversies.
So ganun, are you in favor then of yung pinag-uusapan sa Senado na i-transfer na lang mismo sa department yung responsibility of constructing from DPWH, ipasa na daw sa DepEd?
Well, DepEd naman, for basically the structure is kasi nga Public Works, DPWH, sila yung main arm, particularly main agency in charge of construction. For me, it's not DepEd. It should be with local government units, number one. Because again, all over the Philippines, nandoon yung pagkukulang sa mga classrooms. If we decentralize, particularly on just classroom construction, decentralize natin yan and we empower our local government units to construct classrooms in their own locality. Sila yung accountable. And then at the same time, tingnan din natin how the private sector can help through perhaps a public-private partnership mechanism, how the CSOs, ang daming mga organizations, ang daming mga NGOs na have built on their expertise already on classroom construction. In one of the committee hearings ni Senator Bam Aquino, doon nakita actually na mas cost-effective at cost-efficient ang mga civil society organizations and NGOs sa pagtatayo ng mga classrooms. Mas mura, mas matibay, mas mas climate resilient. So why don't we streamline that, no? Para matulungan ang ating gobyerno sa pag-address doon sa issue ng classroom backlogs.
Yes. Actually, what you mentioned earlier, sir, is also yung parang sinabi rin ni DepEd Secretary Angara, saying na mas maigi siguro gawin na lang din yung what former DepEd Secretary Luis Tru did before, partnered with private institutions, tapos of course, tanggalin nga daw yung sole responsibility sa DPWH para mas ma-focus nga, and of course, to work with LGU para mas magkaroon tayo ng focus pagdating nga sa pagbibuild ng classroom. Kasi earlier this year, sinasabi nga nila, it would take 20 years para mahabol natin yung 100+ thousands na classroom kung gugustuhin natin. But yun nga po, perhaps can you tell us yung magiging impact nito, sa estudyante, sa teachers as a whole, knowing na ganito kalaking bilang ng backlog yung tinitignan natin sa pagbuild ng classrooms?
At the start of this school year, I remember I was interviewed in your program, Sir Angela, and we are talking exactly of the same topic, in classrooms, and what will be the effect of that on the learning outcomes of our learners. So number one, nakikita natin na let's say for example, may mga maraming schools, particularly in highly populated barangays, highly populated local government units. Yung mga public schools doon are masisikip na, sobrang dami ng kanilang learner population, in such case that they have been doing class shiftings. So ibig sabihin, may mga pumapasok, may morning shift, may afternoon shift, and even worse, meron mga pumapasok ng late afternoon towards evening. And that is primarily because kulang nga po tayo sa classrooms. So nagkakaroon ng shifting. And now, because of this, nakikita natin na sana po pinupunuan ito, na may backlog na nga, pero yung pag-catch up doon sa backlog ay napakabagal pa, napaka-inefficient pa. So we would see worsening yung paglala ng ganitong sitwasyon. Baka we might not see just 2 or 3 shifts in one day. So napakalaking problema po yan. Particularly because it affects the learning outcomes of of our learners. Kung titingnan natin kung congested ang isang classroom, if it was constructed, let's say, for a ratio of one classroom for 30 learners, pero nakikita natin 50 learners, even more than that. So it does not anymore create that ideal, let's say, learning environment for the kids. So instead na naupo sila doon ng komportable para sila po ay ma-maximize ang, let's say, learning nila, they are uncomfortable on their, let's say, classroom setting kasi masisikip sila, mainit. And at the same time, because of that, makikita natin that we would experience more, let's say, class suspensions na baka magkaroon pa ng problema ng more class suspensions because, let's say, for example, kapag experience from the previous school year, nagsususpend ng klase kapag sobrang init. Kung congested ang isang classroom, madaming learners sa isang classroom, mas masyadong mainit po yun. So, baka po it would, let's say, lead as well to, let's say, suspension of classes, particularly because of those reasons. So it really affects the learning outcomes of our students, particularly on that conducive learning environment in a classroom.
Hannibal, you hit it right on point by saying well, the backlog ng physical classroom is one issue, but yung issue is backlog also of yung capability ng kada estudyante, hindi mo na mababawi yun. But the question is here, we're talking about the physical classroom. If we do meet, let's say, nahabol natin one of these years yung backlog, ang question is, do we have enough teachers to fill in the number of classrooms we have built? Kasi if not, useless then.
Kasi I agree, Sir Angelo. And again, this has been a very perennial issue. It has transcended several administrations, just on the backlog, as also ang kakulangan doon sa mga sa teachers. So you're correct, sir, no? So maliban sa pag-shift ng klase because of lack of classrooms, nagkakaroon din ng practice sa mga public schools, particularly na dahil sa kakulangan ng teachers, yung mga teachers natin are teaching outside of their specialization.
That's right, yes.
Ang specialization niya, science or math, pero nagtuturo siya ng Filipino kasi may kakulangan sa mga teachers sa Filipino, or may kakulangan sa teachers. Nagtuturo yung isang teacher na ang specialization niya ay Filipino, pero nagtuturo siya ng PE kasi walang teacher may kakulangan sa mga teachers sa PE. So again, maganda na mention nyo ito, Sir Angelo, because particularly ngayon, sinasabi, and it was doon sa version ng budget that was approved in the House. Sinasabi, and there was that claim na this budget, or next year's budget, that the 2026 education budget is the highest history, and it has breached, na naabot niya yung sinasabi ng UNESCO, yung global standard na at least 4% of the GDP should be allocated to education. Now, kami sa PBED, we've been fighting na dapat naman talaga na ganun yung mangyari, na mataas ang budget allocation for education, and that we adhere to the global standard of 4 to 6% of the GDP should be allocated to education. And now, our call is actually for transparency, and clarity. Ano po yung computation at ano yung breakdown ng allocation para masabi natin na naabot natin yung benchmark na yon na 4%. So more than that na paano po yun naabot? Paano po nila na-compute that it has breached the 4% benchmark?
Pero ang problema nito, Hannibal, if lilipat nga ng construction responsibility sa DepEd, yung 4 to 6%, parang hindi rin tumaas dahil added cost pa rin sa DepEd yan.
Particularly, Sir Angelo, if I'm not mistaken po, though the classroom construction ay nakabigay na in the current practice, the construction is with DPWH. Yes. I think the budget is still with DepEd. Okay. Parang nagkakaroon ng intergovernmental transfers yan, if I am not mistaken. So it's still counted as budget ni under education, particularly for DepEd. Just in the breakdown, I'm not very sure, but I've seen in the breakdown for the 2026 budget, parang more or less around 40 billion for next year's budget is allocated for construction, repair, and rehabilitation of
Pero,
classrooms.
Sir, kasi yun nga po yung nangyayari daw dyan eh. Tama yung nabanggit nyo na hindi nagkakaroon ng alignment yung DepEd at saka DPWH dun sa cost per classroom nila. No, mas mataas yung sa DPWH, tapos nagkakaroon pa sila ng mga cancellation ng bidding, nagkakaroon talaga ng bottleneck. Kaya yung backlog natin sa classrooms ay 100,000 plus yung pinag-uusapan natin dito. So my question here right now is, do you think, kasi sinabi rin po ni Secretary Angara na parang nawawili na sila sa flood control project na investigation. While we understand how important that is, do you think also yung education infrastructure natin should be given the same level of urgency para mabigyan po natin ito ng pagkakataon na kumbaga ma-address po natin yung backlog na pinag-uusapan?
Of course, ma'am. There should be that urgency, and there should also be that same level of asking for accountability and transparency on particular to education infrastructure. As what I've said earlier, I believe, and it is my personal opinion, na the flood control projects, the controversy is just the tip of the iceberg. Kung tingnan niyo po yan, and if we dive in outside of the flood control projects on education infrastructure, on classroom construction, makikita natin na ang nagiging root ng problema dyan is, number one, merong overpricing, and it has been discussed.
True.
The committee hearings nga po, nasabi ko na overpriced, no? May mga organisasyon na kayang magtayo ng climate resilient up to the standard ng mga classrooms for a lower price, at mas mabilis nila po itong naitatayo. So good question to ask kung magkakaroon ng ganitong investigasyon on education infrastructure is, bakit ganyan ang costing ng DPWH, number one? Tapos number two, bakit matagal silang mag-construct ng classrooms as compared to other, let's say, organizations na kayang-kayang magtayo ng classrooms na, and then nasa standard pa po, no, na climate resilient siya.
Yun nga kanina nabanggit nyo nga yung mga different shifting schedules na ginagawa ngayon to accommodate lang yung number of students per classroom, etc. I did this report few weeks ago about the school in Sitio Dagat-Dagatan, and yung tumatawid pa sila ng ng ilog para makarating sa other side of the para makarating sila doon sa side ng school nila, and they do that every day ng 4 in the morning because yung start ng school nila, kasi morning shift sila 5 a.m. So ganun katindi yung nangyayari ng mga doon pa lang yun nasa Sitio Dagat-Dagatan sa Rizal, what more dun sa mga far-flung areas, 'di ba?
Correct. You're correct, Ma'am Angela. And that's just one. And it's really nakakaawa, no? Nakakagalit din. Bakit ganyan yung nangyayari sa ating mga learners, no? Pero isang ano lang po yan. That's just one of the many cases po na nagiging sanga-sanga ang problema, and the burden of the problem is really on the learners and also on the teachers. Kapag may pagkukulang sa classroom, kailangang mag-shifting. So ibig sabihin, mas maagang magigising ang mga bata. They have to, let's say there's also that shortened yung kanilang, let's say, time, no? Kasi nga may shifting. To be cramped, yung buong schedule nila, kailangan i-cramp on that specific shift. And what does that mean for our teachers as well because of the shifting? Mag-morning shift na si teacher, mag-afternoon shift pa siya, and meron pang evening shift. So it means that also our teachers are overworked because of this root problem lang po. Just looking at the problem of classroom shortages.
And not to mention, madagdag ko lang na kapag may typhoon pa tayo, ginagawang evacuation center yung mga classroom. Yes, Diego.
Which leads to suspension of classes also.
But the question is, I know naman may mga partnerships already between private schools na may mga voucher programs for as part of a decongesting. But what else can mga private schools do with the government to alleviate yung nangyayari sa public school? Even if magkaroon ng financial assistance sa mga private schools, it's because ang alam ko, like in other countries like Japan, the basis of the economy is education. So, is there anything else that we can do within the private sector and the government?
You mentioned it, Sir Angelo, no? So yung voucher system, there has been studies and there's been discussion of the further
Okay.
expansion of the voucher system. So mas accessible sa mas maraming learners as well. Yung private education particularly, no? Because kailangan kasi din po ng magandang framework on public-private complementarity.
Yes.
So for example, more than the voucher system so that mas maraming access, no? Mas maraming learners yung makakapag-access by having an expanded voucher system. Mas maraming learners yung makakapag-access for private education and thus na medyo na nakakaroon ng decongestion sa mga public schools. Maliban dyan, there are also there should be an exploration as well of sharing of facilities. Kasi may nakikita po yan na let's say for example in one locality yung mga private schools doon may mga pasilidad sila na baka pwedeng gamitin ng ating mga public schools para ma-decongest nga po, no? So ang let's say congestion in the public schools. So maliban on the voucher expansion, there should also be other mechanisms that needs to be explored for public-private complementarity. Facility sharing could be one, but there should also be on the longer term na talagang public-private partnerships to also mapabilis yung pag-churn out natin ng classroom construction, because by the end of the day kailangan nating may address yung root ng problema for now, no? Nakikita natin na ang source ng problem on classroom backlogs is really sobrang bagal, sobrang inefficient, and every year dumadagdag po itong backlog sa classrooms because lumalaki ang ating learner population.
Do you also agree, sir, na yung prioritizing is also one of the reason, prioritizing the which areas dapat mauna na magtayo ng classroom ay isa rin sa mga rason kung bakit nagkakaroon tayo ngayon ng mga backlogs?
Definitely, ma'am, because of course even how big an agency DPWH is, ang dami din po talaga because of the sheer amount of the backlog, talagang magkakaroon ng prioritization, no? But that would be solved. The issue on prioritization, magkakaroon ng mas malawak na nasaklaw po yan kapag local government units, no? So basically, if local government units would be empowered and they would take the lead on classroom construction, mas nasispread yung accountability. And by the end of the day, particularly if we're going to do an audit, mas madali because mas madaling makita ng taong bayan na, ang sabi ng DepEd dito sa munisipyo namin, nag-allocate sila ng budget for 10 classrooms. Madali nilang mahahanap yun. Sasabihan nila, or they will make their mayor or their governor accountable na, sabi sa DepEd, there's budget for 10 classrooms in our locality. At the end of the year, nasaan po ang 10 classroom na ito? So, in that case, medyo short circuit natin yung number one, yung pag-construct, but all the more, nagkakaroon ng easy access for transparency and accountability. Making your local governments
mas
accountable.
alam nila
Yes po,
Mas alam
exactly.
All right. Thank you for your time and insights, Hannibal Camua, Executive Director of PBED. Hope to talk to you again.
Maraming salamat din po. Thank you.
The Independent Commission for Infrastructure, or ICI, is all set for its field validation of over 400 flood control projects found to be non-existent by Public Works Department. For the latest, let's bring in our mobile journal, Arles de los Santos. Arles, kamusta pagtakbo nyo dyan sa opisina ng ICI?
Angela, Diego, magandang umaga. So far, nitong mga nakaraang araw ay wala tayong takbuhan dito dahil kumpara sa mga nagdaang linggo ay mas kakaunti na ang mga resource persons na dumarating dito at na lamang ay para palalimin pa at plansyahin na nga. Gaya na lamang nitong gagawin na site validation ng Independent Commission for Infrastructure kung saan kahapon nga ay dumating ang ilang kawani ng Philippine National Police at nakipagpulong kanila ICI Chairperson Andres Reyes maging sa commissioner nito na si dating DPWH Secretary Babe Singson. Ayan nga ay para sa site validation ng 421 suspected flood control projects na nasa iba't ibang mga bahagi ng ating bansa. Matatandaan natin na sa record mula 2018 hanggang 2024, 261 sa mga suspected flood control projects ang nasa Luzon, 108 naman ang suspected ghost flood project sa Visayas at 51 naman ang nasa Mindanao. So medyo kalat-kalat kaya ito, kaya naman kung maaalala natin na sa pagpunta at pag-assume sa office nito ni ICI Special Advisor Rodolfo Azurin ay siniguro niya ang pakikipag-ugnayan sa PNP, AFP, NBI at DepDev para nga mas mapabilis pa itong isasagawang site validation ng mga ghost flood control projects na ito. Ayon kay ICI Executive Director Brian Hosaka, nais nila na masiguro na ang lahat ng dokumento, affidavit at mga ebidensya na makakalap ng mga field validators ay papasa at tatanggapin ng korte. Kaya naman ito daw ang mga ahensya ng pamahalaan na kanilang pinili para tumulong sa isinasagawang investigasyon ng komisyon. Pero bukod sa mga ahensya ng pamahalaan ay makikipagtulungan na din ang pribadong sektor sa pamamagitan ng Council of Engineering Consultant of the Philippines.
Ayun, yung sa council na yun, Arles, will they also be looking at substandard? Kasi wala naman sa technical capabilities ng mga chairperson ng ICI ang pagtingin kung paano kung substandard ang isang project.
Tama ka dyan, Diego. Maaaring ito ang isa sa mga focus kung bakit mahalaga ang gampanin nitong mga engineer natin. Dahil kung matatandaan ninyo, ay nagkaroon ng mga tanong-tanungan kung sino nga ba ang kumububuo sa komposisyon ng mga namumuno sa ICI. So ayan, meron tayong para balansehin mula sa Justice Department, of course, and then yung background para sa DPWH project kanya si Singson, and then para naman sa screening ng ay mula sa SGB. So ito parang completing the puzzle itong consultants mula sa Engineering Consultants of the Philippines.
Pero will they be also checking substandard? Kasi parang ang nababanggit so far sa news lagi is ghost when will they take a look at the others?
Sa ngayon, Diego, prioridad nila itong 421 na suspected flood control projects. Pero inaasahan natin na sa mga darating na araw ay mag-e-extend na rin sila sa mga substandard flood control projects. At nitong mga nakaraang linggo din ay nagbigay na ng case recommendation itong ICI sa Ombudsman para nga kagaya na lamang sa Mindoro, yung mga kaso doon at ilang mga kinasasangkutan din ng mga kumpanya ng mga diskaya at sa paparating pang mga linggo ay maaring makakuha pa tayo mag-file ng kaso itong ICI sa Ombudsman.
Arles, I'm curious how do they identify which areas yung kinabuuan nitong 400 flood control areas na kanilang isa-site visit for validation. Ito ba ay nanggaling doon sa website, yung sumbong mo sa Pangulo website, or galing din yung iba doon sa initial report na binigay ni Pangulo nung siya ay nagpa-press con regarding this?
Angela, ito ay halo-halo itong 421, pero malaki sa bahagdan nito ay nanggaling doon sa initial na reports and findings ng DPWH. Pumunta dito noon si Secretary Vince Dizon para ibigay nga ang kanilang initial report dito sa ICI at tinanggap ito ng ICI at ang kanilang magiging aksyon ay mas i-validate pa para mas masilip pa yung mga papeles kung paano nga bang naging proseso sa pagulong ng mga proyekto na ito mula sa bidding process hanggang sa pagsisimula ng mga pag-construction nito, and then kung ano nga yung kalagayan nito ngayon. Pero nasa ilang libo na rin yung nakita natin ng mga iniulat sa Sumbong Pangulo website. So hihintayin natin sa paggulong ng araw na ito kung meron pa nga ba silang titignan na kasama doon sa mga iniulat.
I was wondering kung meron din silang timeline, set na timeline dito sa pag-inspect dito kasi medyo marami-rami itong 400 sites na ito, and of course the public is eager to know kung meron pa silang another set of recommendations na ibibigay sa Ombudsman para makapag-file ng cases, because at the end of the day, yun ang iniintay ng publiko, 'di ba? Magkaroon ng makakasuhan at magkaroon ng somebody na makukulong.
Sa makakasuhan, Angela, so far tuloy-tuloy ang case build-up ng ICI, pero pagdating doon sa timeline ay aminado naman itong komisyon na medyo short talaga sila sa manpower dahil dito sa 421 na suspected flood control projects, nanggaling ito doon sa initial na 8,000 infrastructure projects na hinihinalang ghost projects talaga. Iba pa yan sa mahigit 200,000 na mga infrastructure projects sa pamahalaan na kailangan din at silipin at siguraduhin na wala ngang mga anomalya na nangyari dito sa pagkakabuo at pagsisimula ng mga ito.
Alright, thank you for that. Mobile Journal, Arles de los Santos reporting live from Taguig.
We'll be back. More stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. The House Committee on Games and Amusement is now conducting a hearing on the ill effects of online gambling in the country. Let's listen in.
And vis-a-vis the significant social cost, we do support either its complete prohibition or stricter regulation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Pagcor, may bago ba kayong position?
None, sir. Our position is for strict regulation, sir.
The same. May we hear from the National Bureau of Investigation?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, honorable members of the committee, fellow attendees. The NBI steadfastly supports the call of the House for a meaningful and timely responsive legislation to halt the problems of illegal gambling. We at the NBI will, as a law enforcement agency, rest assured that we will persist in our relentless efforts to enforce the law to its fullest extent and to protect the people from the destructive effects of online gambling, whether it be for strict regulation or for total prohibition, Your Honor. We will support the call of the law to be enacted, sir. And we will submit, Your Honor, our position paper for this matter, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we hear from the Cybercrime Investigation and Coordinating Center?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you for inviting the CICC in today's hearing. May I read, Your Honor, our position paper?
Go ahead.
If it's allowed. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. The CICC is well aware of the complex social impact of online gambling and its contribution in national building of PAGCOR and its industry it regulates. This office proposes regulation, not a total ban, of online gambling, subject to strict safeguards. Two pillars of policy intervention are apparent. The first pillar pertains to strengthening law enforcement and judicial frameworks, including penalties. The second pillar pertains to a robust and technology-driven regulatory, which includes utilization of advanced information and communications and digital forensic tools. And example, mandatory advanced protocols, blockchain, and AI-based monitoring. This is the position of the CICC, and this shall be submitted to the body, Your Honor.
So you haven't submitted yet your position paper to the committee?
I believe we have already sent an advanced copy, Your Honor. If not, Your Honor, we'll be submitting today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Now, may we hear from the PNP Anti-Cybercrime Group?
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of this committee, other guests. We respectfully inform that the PNP-ACG, or the Anti-Cybercrime Group, expresses its unequivocal support to these legislative measures. Online gambling, when left unchecked, poses serious risk to cyberspace integrity, national security, and public welfare. And significantly, the Philippine National Police acknowledges the presence of online gambling operations legally authorized by the state. However, without the imposition of strict regulatory controls, this platform could easily be exploited for criminal activities and consequently operate beyond the bounds of law. So, Mr. Chair, we have submitted our comments and recommendation, but may I mention the two important on matters of investigation of the PNP-ACG. First one is to effectively disrupt and promptly investigate online gambling activities. The PNP shall be vested with authority. First, order the blocking of websites and applications engaged in such operations. Second, compel the disclosure of IP addresses, accounts, and other corresponding owners, including the registered operators or administrators of these platforms. Third, direct the freezing of funds or transaction connected to online gambling, including course through cryptocurrency, and the act of streaming or broadcasting live cockfights and any other online gambling be prohibited. And second, sir,
Right, let's get more updates from the House of Representatives from mobile journalist Amy Atienza. Amy?
The Philippines to ensure that
Amy, go ahead.
the notices for blocking and
No, we
takedowns.
can't.
Yan. Yes, Amy, can you hear us?
Such as GoDaddy, Amazon.
So ayun, good morning no, Angela, Diego. Nandito nga tayo ngayon sa House of Representatives at kung narinig naman natin yung usapin patungkol nga dito sa online gambling kasama ang House and Games and Amusement Committee, talagang tuloy-tuloy pa rin ang nagiging talakayan nila kung total ban nga ba or stricter regulations lang ang pwedeng mangyari dito nga sa online gambling. Ang pinupunto kasi nila dito matagal na kahit nung mga pauna-una nilang hearings and deliberations dito, organizational meetings na isinagawa din ng komite, nasabi na nila na dapat daw ay stricter regulations lang ang mangyari dito. Kabilang na nga dyan yung pagbaba ng mga illegal gambling sites. At yun nga, kailangan daw kasi dito na ma-recognize kung sino nga ba yung mga accredited ng PAGCOR para nga mag-operate bilang gambling sites dito nga sa online. Pero yun nga, napakarami daw kasing adverse effects at yan na nga rin yung mga sinasabi ng ilang mga kongresista rito na napakarami na raw kasing negative effects nitong online gambling, lalo-lalo na sa mga Pilipino. At kung makikita din natin yung ibang mga reports na umaabot na sa mga severe cases, yung online gambling, kaya titingnan pa natin at alamin pa natin dito sa Kamara kung ano nga ba magiging desisyon ng Games and Amusement Committee patungkol nga dyan sa online gambling. Angela, Diego?
Amy, nandiyan ba si Congressman Shell Jokno? Kasi alam ko he's one of the first to file, pero for regulations siya. Tapos yung ibang congressman naman na for the abolition mismo of the online gambling, nandun din ba sila sa committee hearing ngayon?
So far, kung si Congressman Shell Jokno, hindi pa natin siya nakikita dito sa House of Representatives. Pero kung makikita din naman natin yung nagiging participation ni Representative Chel dito sa House of Representatives, talagang nagiging active naman siya, lalong-lalo na kapag may gusto talaga siyang isulong or kaya ipaglaban sa kanyang mga advocacy bilang akbayan party list representative. Yung ibang mga congressmen, meron na din tayo narinig na mga filing of bills nga dito sa House of Representatives na yun nga, gusto nila total ban dahil nga hindi lang kasi yung effects nito sa mental, kundi pati daw kasi mga bata na yung nagiging affected ng online gambling. So nagiging mahirap yan dahil kung titingnan din yung demographics, majority ng mga gumagamit ng online gambling sites, lalo na yung mga illegal online gambling sites, ay nasa age range ng 18 to 24 years old. So yun yung gusto nila, mag-total ban na nga ito at hindi na totally nga maisulong pa. And kanina narinig na rin natin sa hearing na mababa daw kasi yung naibibigay din naman ng online gambling pagdating sa gross domestic product nga ng Pilipinas, nasa 0.37% pa lang yung naiaambag nito. So titingnan pa rin natin nga kung ano nga yung mangyayari dito sa online gambling. Pero most likely, yung mga narinig natin kongresista, gusto talaga nila ay total ban, or complete ban itong online gambling.
Alright, so any other hearings that we need to know that is scheduled today? Also, I would like to ask din kasi last week nagpauna na yung Makabayan Block sa pag-release ng kanilang mga SALN, diba? Para maging magandang halimbawa daw sila. Meron ba tayong nalalaman ngayon, Amy, dyan na susunod doon sa pag-release ng kanilang SALN mula sa House of Representatives?
Mm-hmm. Well, so far, wala pa naman ibang hearing na magaganap. Actually, may mga scheduled pa tayong aabangan sa mga weeks to come dahil inalaw na nga din yan dito sa Kamara, na kahit recess ng plenary session ay magkakaroon pa rin ng mga hearing dito sa House of Representatives. Pero bukod pa dyan, yung patungkol naman sa SALN, inaabangan natin na magre-release na nga rin ng SALN yung ibang mga kongresista, lalo na sinimulan na ng Makabayan Block yung pag-release nila. So most likely din, yung mga kasama nila dito, usually sa Kamara, like yan sila Representative Laila De Lima, Representative Chel Jokno, pati na rin sila Representative Percy Sandanya. Most likely magre-release na rin sila ng mga SALN nila, lalong-lalo na kung meron na ding public demand na hinihingi. Pero ang mga inaabangan pa natin dito sa Kamara ay kung magre-release nga din pa ng SALN, yung mga may parang connection sa mga contractors. Isa na nga dyan, si Representative Garjola, pati na rin yung ibang mga representative na meron ding say or maraming opinion patungkol nga dito sa mga anomalous flood control projects. At isa na nga rin itong paraan para kanilang ma-clear out yung kanilang pangalan. At yun nga, naabangan din natin kung magre-release nga ba ng SALN yung iba pang mga kongresista dito. Angela, Diego.
Alright, maraming salamat sa iyong oras. That was our mobile journalist, Amy Atienza, reporting live from the House of Representatives.
Families of the missing Sabongeros continue to seek justice as the Department of Justice wraps up its preliminary investigation into the high-profile disappearance case. Here's the report.
Relatives of missing sabong enthusiasts personally attended the final day of the preliminary investigation at the Department of Justice. They're hoping the prosecution's resolution will favor them, so murder, kidnapping, and serious illegal detention charges can finally be filed in court.
Tapos na po yung PI. Ang laki po ng pag-asa namin na makakamit na namin yung justisya pagdating po sa resolution. Sana po pumubor sa amin, magkaroon na po ng warrant. Walang magpapareglo, talagang lahat po kami nagkakaisa rito. Hanggang dulo, lalaban kami.
Meanwhile, the camp of businessman Atong Ang, tagged as the alleged mastermind, wants the case sent back to the CIDG for investigation.
We are hopeful, and we are quite confident actually that we are hopeful that the case will be rebundled back to CIDG for investigation. In view of the fact that the evidences submitted do not have enough credibility.
But whistleblower Julie Dondon Patidongan stood by his testimony.
Alam naman natin talaga lahat kung sino ang mastermind dito. At alam naman nila na hindi naman ako basta-basta lulutang ng ganito. Within 16 years ako kay Mr. Atong Ang kung wala akong pinanghawakan agin sa kanya.
The DOJ is expected to release its resolution soon, which will determine whether the case moves to court or is dismissed. Out of 61 respondents, 57 have submitted their counter affidavits, including Ang and his children, actress Gretchen Barreto and former NCRPO Chief Jonel Estomo. Meanwhile, the Philippine Coast Guard continues searching for the remains of the missing Sabongeros in Taal Lake. From July to October 12, authorities have recovered 887 human bone fragments, but DNA results to match them with families are still pending.
Hindi na po natin kailangan tinan pa yung DNA evidence. Okay, it may add to whatever evidence we have now, but if the assessment by the panel of prosecutors is that there is sufficient evidence to proceed to trial.
Senator Rodante Marcoleta clashed with the Department of Justice over its requirement for the Diskaya couple to return alleged ill-gotten wealth before they could be admitted to the Witness Protection Program. Here is the report.
Senator Rodante Marcoleta once again grilled the Department of Justice during a budget hearing yesterday. That's for requiring contractors Sara and Curly Diskaya to return their supposed ill-gotten wealth first before they can be evaluated for the Witness Protection Program. Marcoleta argued that the restitution requirement is not found in the law, questioning why the DOJ continues to insist on it.
Wala namang nilalagay na restitution, ipipilit nyo para lang hindi sila makover ng program. So ano mangyayari sa batas natin? You will insist on an opinion supplanting the requisites categorically provided by law. Ay hindi talaga makakapaprocess. So pinipili nyo yung gusto nyo i-process.
However, Justice Undersecretary Jesse Andres said the Diskaya's application for WPP can only be granted if they have satisfied their legal and civil obligations.
Under Section 5, letter D, nakalagay din po dyan kung ano po yung legal obligations and civil judgments or civil aspect of the case against him. Maari pong i-process yung application niya, but under the first statement under Section 5, before a person is provided protection under this act, he shall first execute a memorandum of agreement which shall set forth his responsibilities, including the following. So kasama po dun sa mga obligations.
Ano nga?
Ito po, to comply with legal obligations and civil judgments.
But Marcoleta stood firm, saying only the court has the authority to set the requirements for witness protection.
Did they admit to you na sila ay nangulimbat ng ganito karaming pera? Hindi ko dinidepensa ng mga tao ngayon. Ginawa ko lamang yon doon sa nalalaman ko na ma-identify natin ang pinaka-mastermind dito. Yun lang, wala nang iba. Kung gusto nyong ang ma-identify, puro butete at saka sapsap, bahala na kayo sa buhay nyo.
The Diskayas earlier named several lawmakers and Department of Public Works and Highways officials allegedly involved in corruption in flood control projects. They also withdrew cooperation with the Independent Commission for Infrastructure's investigation.
The Maharlika Investment Corporation denied reports linking it to Patrick Mahoney a British-Swiss national convicted in Switzerland over the 1 million DB scandal. A Sarawak Report article claimed Mahoney was advising officials behind the Maharlika Investment Fund. MIC called the report false and potentially damaging, clarifying that Mahoney was never been involved with the corporation in any capacity. It stressed that the company operates within its legal mandate under strict supervision. The Maharlika Investment Fund, launched in 2023, pools government resources for investments in infrastructure and other key projects to boost economic growth.
Travel through Luzon's tollways is now faster with the launch of the One RFID all-tollway system. President Bongbong Marcos led the rollout in Calamba, Laguna, saying the new single sticker system will end confusion. The project allows motorists to use just one RFID sticker across all expressways, aiming to ease traffic, especially during the Undas travel rush. Transportation Secretary Giovanni Lopez says motorists can apply online or walk in at gas stations and toll plazas to update or replace their stickers free of charge.
Malinaw ang layunin nito, mapabilis ang daloy ng trapiko sa mga tollgate. Totoo naman, malaki ang tulong nito. Ngunit hindi natin may kaila ang nagdudulot din ng dalawang RFID systems na kalituhan. Dalawang card, dalawang account, dalawang load sa bawat biyahe. Ang reformang ito sa RFID system ay bahagi ng mas malawak nating layunin na gawing mas moderno, konektado, at nakatuon sa pangangailangan ng bawat Pilipino ang ating infrastruktura.
The Signal Super Spikers pulled off a huge upset over the PLDT high-speed hitters. Playing without their import Eva Hantava, who has reportedly parted ways with the team, Signal relied on its all-Filipino roster to deliver a dominant performance. The Super Spikers swept PLDT in straight sets, 25-17, 25-22, 25-21, showing grit and chemistry on the court. With the win, Signal improves to 1-2, while PLDT's impressive 15-game winning streak comes to a halt.
Some of the country's top OPM artists were honored at the first-ever Filipino Music Awards, which celebrated outstanding talent and contributions in the local music scene. P-pop powerhouse SB19 dominated the event, taking home the People's Choice Artist, People's Choice Song and Pop Song of the Year for their hit Dumka. SB19, Justin and Diwata also won Folk Song of the Year for Sampung Mga Daliri. Zill's Ayan Inas was named Alternative Song of the Year, while Four of Spades bagged Rock Song of the Year for Aura. Meanwhile, Janela's soulful track Marilag won R&B Song of the Year. Special honors were also given to OPM icons. The late Belita Corrales received the Music Foundation of the Year tribute, while Jose Marichan was recognized with the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Yun.
Congratulations to all the winners. Mabuhay ang OPM.
Sana next time may mga achievement award kahit bata pa.
Ay, ganun. Gusto mo kala ko OPM.
Gusto ko ng lifetime achievement.
OPM.
Ikaw, yung singing.
I'm good.
Bago mag-Christmas po, kakanta dito si Angel. Itagaan nyo yan. Yung EP natin, pakantahin to si Angel. Ready natin live yan.
Gusto nyo pang magtuloy-tuloy itong show.
Okay, yan ang tanong dyan. Alright, that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again tomorrow. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
I'm Angelo Castro III. Kapatid, we are One News.
All sides, all the time.